What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
In March 2005 at the Geneva Motor Show, Skoda presented the Yeti concept. Stylish five-door car and not less stylish convertible came to the taste of the public. The original design with elements of Skoda Fabia, on the basis of which the concept was created, that is called, came. In fact, the external appearance of the concept with minimal changes was transferred to the serial model, which does not happen so often. However, it was necessary to stretch the exterior on a noticeably larger platform PQ46, which had the possibility of installing all-wheel drive, so if you look closely, there will be a lot of differences. But the main thing here is style, and it has remained unchanged. In the technical part, everything is not so interesting, because the global platform PQ46, related to the bogie PQ35, was used by that time on more than a dozen cars of the company. Among the related models were Volkswagen Golf V6, Passat B6, B7, Tiguan, Golf Plus and even Audi A3. In terms of suspension, electronics and body structure, all models are very similar. The body is all steel, strictly five-door. Engines are mounted transversely in front, the arrangement of units is in a row and line arrangement. Basic drive is front, optional all-wheel drive is realized by means of electro-hydraulic clutch haldex on the rear axle. Suspensions are classical, in front McPherson, behind multi-lever. The choice of motors and gearboxes is small, and very powerful versions were not provided. However, 152 horsepower gasoline engine and 170 horsepower diesel for this chassis is more than enough. An interesting feature is the VarioFlex saloon transformation system, which was available in Europe initially, and in Russia it began to be installed after restyling. VarioFlex allows you to choose between the space on the back row and the volume of the trunk. The seats of the back row are separate and can slide back and forth by 15 centimeters, and the angle of inclination of the backrest is variable. The use of a small capacity 1.2 TSI engine on a rather heavy car is also unusual. Despite the relatively small dimensions, Yeti weight even with the smallest engine is 1,360 kilograms, and all-wheel drive variants are even heavier, from 1,585 kilogram. Chronology March 2009. The model is presented at the Geneva Motor Show. August 29, 2009. Yeti sales start. Gasoline engines are presented supercharged 1.2 TSI, 105 horsepower, and 1.8 TSI, 152 horsepower. In Europe also available diesel 2.0 TDI with 110, 140 and 170 horsepower. Motors can be combined with 6-speed manual transmission or pre-selective robots DSG, 4 1.2 with 7 steps, 4 1.8 TSI and diesels with 6. All-wheel drive was equipped only with versions with 1.8 or with the most powerful diesel engines. June-December 2010. The model began to be equipped with new motors. Petrol 1.4 TSI, 122 horsepower, and diesel 1.6 TDI, 105 horsepower appeared. Both motors can be equipped with 7-speed DSG. Drive is front-wheel drive only. December 2012. Launch of production in Nizhny Novgorod. September 2013. Yeti restyling is shown at the Frankfurt Motor Show. The model received changes in appearance and city and outdoor variants available in a number of countries. The 1.2 and 1.4 TSI engines of EA111 family were replaced by EA211 engines with an output of 110 and 125 horsepower during 2014. The 1.8 TSI motors were upgraded to the next generation EA888 Gen 3. The 2.0 TDI motors have been updated, with 110 and 150 horsepower options available. February 2018. The end of Yeti production in Nizhny Novgorod. Body. Exterior panels. Volkswagen cars of the early 2010s have a number of problems with the paintwork, and Yeti was fully affected. Closer to 2012 to 2013, the paint technology was improved and the problems became much less, but they have not disappeared completely. Not passivated galvanizing of body panels leads to the fact that the paintwork peels off in a large area around the place of the original paint damage. And if the cavity under the paint is not opened, for example, under the layer of anti-gravel or in the places of adhesion of the plastic panel or rubber sealant, the metal in this place quickly enough rots to holes. Pre-restyling copies of Yeti are prone to corrosion of external panels. In case of poor maintenance, they rot badly. There are quite a lot of neglected copies in the population, and often it is not even a question of blistering paint, but outright holes on the outer elements. It is impossible to buy old Yeti without looking, counting on all-powerful galvanization. It is necessary to have a full inspection with measuring of paintwork thickness and careful checking of all weak points. And there are plenty of them, even in the most visible place, on the edge of the hood, where the radiator grille cover is attached, rust can come out. The junction between the hood panel and the trim plate is a perfect place for corrosion. The roof edge, wheel arches, front mudguard mounting points, the area under the roof rails, door edges and corners with rolled edges. Door handle recesses, the license plate recess on the rear door and simply the side surfaces of the lower body everywhere is very likely to be chipped and corroded. Special attention should be paid to seals and places of their contact with the metal of the body, the joint of the front and rear doors, the upper part of the openings, especially above the rear door. The seal of the rear door and arches if attracts rust, and the outer edge of the rear door is often all chipped, despite the presence of a protective film there. Look in rear wings under lanterns, these are not the most obvious places for inspection, but Skoda knows how to surprise. Even if a cursory inspection from the outside doesn't show corrosion bubbles, there are chances to find it in such places. Underneath, the condition of the car underneath and in hidden areas is highly dependent on the quality of maintenance. Read from how thoroughly all panel joints were preventively washed and corrosion protection was renewed. Underbody and floor panels are not covered with plastic from below, but well treated with anti-gravel and with successful ventilation and drainage, so that serious corrosion can be almost not even on externally problematic copies. If the sills have not been damaged in an accident, the car has not been climbed in the mud, and the paint fading from sandblasting and chipping from the elevator at the junction of the sill and the booster have been corrected in time, you are unlikely to see holes. And yet in the front part of the sill under the plastic cover, corrosion can slowly develop, and there is also a bracket for fixing. The plastic cover is not very successful, and the plug allows rust to get inside the cavity. In the rear part, the sill usually suffers at the bottom, dirt collects there even in city cars. The clip holes of the upper sill plate fasteners also become rust pockets over time, especially if the plastic has not been removed professionally or if unsuitable clips have been used. Another unpleasant place of the body is the arches. First of all, the rear ones, where the sealing lip under the door never dries out. Moisture gets into the rubber part from inside the arch and does not dry out, and every time the door is opened, the seal works, allowing water to get deeper. The inner lip of the rest of the arch is also rusting intensively. The front arches also have enough problems, there are almost always pockets of rust at the rear of the wing, at the junction with the sill plate. The mudguard rubs the edge of the fender, damaging the paintwork, and anti-gravel does not allow the paint to fly off, forming a deep pocket of water and contributing to the growth of loose rust. The process is slow, but many owners are unaware of it for years or touch up the problem areas right over the rust, recklessly hoping for galvanization. In the front arch at the sill, a mud pocket is formed behind the locker. Rust there is superficial, but in time the problem may become serious, especially since there is also a technological hole in the inner body cavity. The junction of the front bumper and fender is also a dangerous place, look there with a flashlight. Under the lockers of the arches the body is openly corroded, there are a lot of small pockets on the inner surface of the wings at the junction with the locker, there are problem points and around the plugs, wiring cords. Redness is almost certain to be found at the shock absorber support stiffeners, along the spars, at the spring cups. Sometimes there is deep corrosion behind the fuel filler pipes. Behind the rear arches there are elements of the power structure with large windows open to all dirt. They are made of thick metal, but, unfortunately, are not protected from rust by anti-gravel, and the paint is simply stripped off by sandblasting from under the wheels. And a little farther on the fender bumper mounting points, there the area is also problematic. Corrosion is easily fixed in the technological holes closed with rubber plugs and on the studs. After restyling, the paintwork has become noticeably more durable and the quality of body seam work has improved dramatically. Chances to find paint swelling along the lower edge of sills and arches are much less, doors from inside are almost not affected. But, unfortunately, corrosion still attacks as the location of seals and technological holes has not changed and there is no anti-gravel coating inside the arches. Body equipment. Sadly, on cars before restyling, you will almost certainly have to replace all the door seals. Their metal frame is rotting and the characteristic of swelling is a verdict. Unlike the body, there is nothing to clean there. There are also typical difficulties with chrome, for example, the radiator grille fades. Many people solve the issue with anti-chrome by painting the grille in body color. Otherwise, there are all typical defects of Volkswagen of that period. The gas tank hatch locker can fail and the lock of the rear door, capricious both because of mechanical problems and because of the electrics. The headlight plastics are often scuffed and cloudy. Most of Yeti has halogen optics without lenses and it does not burn out, so the problem can be corrected by polishing. But on the copies with xenon, the reflectors of lens modules are not so durable and with time they burn out, so polishing is not enough. Daytime running lights could save the resource of gas discharge headlights, but this option is very rare on Yeti. The window guide in the power window mechanism often fails, its soft insert glues off the metal part and falls inside the door. As a result, the glass starts to rattle, the chances of its misalignment and breakage of the power window mechanism increase. The cable drive itself is rarely broken yet. But any malfunction causes a lot of trouble with repair. We have to deal with removal of the door panel. It is fixed not only by bolts with thread lockers, but also glued on sealant. Roof rails are famous for the fact that their front part, fairing, falls off. There are Chinese ones on sale, they can be ordered from a well-known site. Traditionally for cars on the PQ46 platform there are rather high chances of fuel filler lock drive failure. In general, Yeti has no serious punctures on the part of equipment, largely because there are few cars in rich configurations. 3/4 of cars are front-wheel drive and without frills in the form of keyless access, auto-darkening mirrors, gas discharge headlights and so on. If the cars were richer equipped, there would be more hassle. For an example, you can read materials on co-partnered Tiguan or Passat, handles and mirror folding mechanisms break there. Detail original price of non-original 2 body front headlight halogen 13535 TYC 27341 Polcar 17617 front. Headlight xenon 100 632 Magneti Morelli 39 220 Windshield 68 653 Pilkington 24 374 Benson 13 135 Front wing 39 221 Polcar 7 328 TYG 7 773 Front bumper upper part 39 508 Blick 53 859 Hood 1 18 552 TYG 41 215 Polcar 19 462 Interior. Although the interior is simple, it is pleasantly designed and well ergonomized. Leather steering wheel is not the most frequent option, as well as soft lining of door cards. Therefore, the cars hide the mileage surprisingly well. Plastic steering wheel, even after more than 200,000 kilometers, it is enough to wash thoroughly, and by texture it will be very difficult to understand how much the car has run. Plain fabric seats also hold perfectly. Pedal covers and the cover of the control lever age more intensively, but it is easy to change them. If the steering wheel is leather, the situation is the opposite, the speed of its wear strongly depends on the load. Sometimes the steering wheels were changed at mileage just over 50,000 under warranty. The leather was not of the best quality. If you want to understand how much mileage the car has, look at the condition of the hinges and wiring of the driver's door, not the seat and steering wheel. And there is nothing to break here. In case of sloppy handling, the coating of the power window buttons, light switch, climate control panel is peeled off, but in general, it is characteristic either for a frankly barbaric attitude or for huge mileage. The mechanism of adjustment of an angle of inclination of backrests of front seats is not very successful, and on cars after restyling, the system VarioFlex at seats of a back row sometimes fails, but as a whole everything can be repaired there. Multimedia systems are usually simple, there is nothing to break and malfunction there. climatics in half of copies is also the simplest and very reliable. But if there is an automatic climate control, there is no trouble. The flaps are almost not subject to rustling and breakdowns are not frequent. Yeti stands out in the family of Volkswagen cars on the platform PQ46 by the fact that it is relatively rarely tuned. But it is not without upgrades, although they usually put relatively easy to install components that can be installed bolt-on. For example, rear electric windows, multimedia system above level, one of variants, Bolero, climate control unit from Passat B7. Washer level sensor, Parktronics, rear view cameras. Almost always supplement these works by replacing additional support units like gateway. In general, owners have a lot of desires, but only a few dare to make large-scale modifications to the climate system, interior, electronics, or purchase expensive new elements. The most persistent ones put in their cars more comfortable and electrified seats from Passat, Tiguan and even heated second row. RTC electric cabin heater is also valued. Cars with EA111 1, 2 and 1, 4 motors do not warm up very well. Some are ready to shell out for a multi-dot dashboard, multirodal, cameras of active cruise control and even such Uber device as Mini FIS. Very powerful onboard computer with functionality of a good scanner and control of many hidden options of ECU. Electrics. You may recall that in articles about PQ46, 35 platform machines, we urge great care in checking the electrical system. It is complex and the quality of even a fixed piece of wiring is floating. Corrosion of important conductors within the insulation is not that uncommon. Problems also happen in the underhood and in the passenger compartment harness. Without knowledge of the electronics of this particular generation, it is quite difficult to find this kind of bugs. The most common trouble is the breakage of wires in the corrugations of the driver's door and tailgate. It is very desirable to change the rubber corrugations in advance for new type parts in which wires are fixed better and are more twisted than bent, part number 5N0959843B. In general, among the typical troubles there are no particularly terrible ones, and the operation of Yeti for most owners does not carry special troubles. Dashboards do not have the most successful illumination. Though it is based on LEDs, it is far from eternal. The Webasto heater control unit is not very well located, but it is a rare option. If the car is more than 5 to 7 years old, it is better to have a gasoline pump control module. With wear and tear, the gasoline pump begins to consume large currents and eventually the module will die one day. That's probably all. But if serious problems do occur, they are difficult to diagnose and take a long time to resolve. Mass availability of VCDs type scanners and self-diagnostic capabilities of onboard systems of the platform make the situation much easier. Intermediate summary: if you look at cars at the bottom of the market, you can come across very rusty copies. Yeti is a typical example of problems with paintwork of Volkswagen in the middle of 2000s, and it is on Skoda. The quality of paintwork is the worst among all brands of the concern. At copies after restyling with a bodywork, things are almost good, but some problematic points remain. Therefore, it is worth to check the body thoroughly, even if the thickness gauge and eyes say that the car has not been painted and has not been in an accident. The main advice: do not buy rotten copies in the hope of easy restoration. The price of body elements is surprisingly high, and cars in decent condition is still enough even among the copies before restyling. In any case, if you expand the geography of your search and do not limit yourself to Moscow and St. Petersburg. In conclusion, the Skoda Yeti presents a unique blend of practicality and potential for enthusiasts. While the pre-restyling models may face challenges with rust, they offer a solid foundation for creative tuning projects. The interior remains timeless and durable, ensuring comfort for years to come. For those willing to invest a little effort, the Yeti can transform into a standout vehicle that reflects personal style while maintaining its reliability. Whether you're drawn to its rugged charm or its tuning possibilities, the Skoda Yeti proves to be a worthy companion on the road.